Well, history is replete. In every age and in every generation, there have been folks who have been sort of epitomes of that which is good and wholesome and right in our world. And there have also been those who have been lifted up as despots, as criminals, as persons who have no respect for anything other than themselves and are very destructive to everything around them. If you go to any age, you can find both. And it is not, isn't it true, even today? There are folks who are busily at work trying to create a world in which people don't have to struggle for survival, where they can feel safety, where they have what they need for the very sustaining of life itself. And we have a world which is filled with those who have greed and avarice, who care not about what happens to anyone else. Time doesn't seem to change that reality. As I thought about these words of Jesus, into my mind came a phrase, "No good deed goes unpunished." I wanted to know the source of that, and so on one of these rare occasions when I use the internet, I looked it up. Do you know who first said that? Clare Boothe Luce. She was an author, a playwright, but she was also the first ambassador, woman ambassador in the history of this nation, and was sent by the president to be the ambassador to Italy. But she spoke these words when a friend asked her to do for her a good deed. And she said, "No good deed goes unpunished." History says that there were many such quips from her as she responded to the world around her. But as I thought about that, I thought about how we maintain our sense of balance as a people of faith in a world that somehow has absolutely little or no respect for faith itself. For persons who believe in the Lordship of Jesus Christ and who seek each and every day to try to do that which is right and good in their interpersonal relationships, hoping that somehow in doing that, they will make an impact that ripples out to other places. And in fact, is that not the reason why we struggle so to do that which is right and good? Not simply for our own welfare, although it certainly does have some benefit for us, but because our acts do have that kind of ripple effect. If we do that which is good, sooner or later it's going to encounter someone in a helpful or a hopeful way. If we do that which is more destructive, more self-centered, it too has that same kind of ripple effect. One of the things that Clare Boothe Luce also said, which I copied down to share with you this morning, is that when we take a stand for what is right or good, we can expect resistance or open hostility. Friends, we are not, as followers of Jesus Christ, often greeted warmly by the world around us. How many times have you heard somebody say about another person, "Oh, she's just a do-gooder," or "he's just a do-gooder," as a way of diminishing the impact of whatever that person is saying or doing, as if it somehow doesn't count for anything because it's quote unquote for the good. That's what Clare Boothe Luce was talking about. It's true in every arena of our lives. Any place we are publicly, we have to deal with that kind of potential reality. We are often greeted with skepticism, with indifference, and sometimes even with open hostility. What is it about the Christian faith that somehow distresses and disturbs the general state of the human condition? One of the things that we as a church have often tried to do is to work in third world countries to increase their educational and their spiritual life. And whenever one of these despots surfaces to take over, the first people who are dealt with are educators and religious leaders. They are the ones who are destroyed because evil somehow surfaces and takes over the life of a country. If you look at how this has happened again and again and again in history, being a Christian is not an easy thing to do, no matter where we are. Even in a country like ours that supposedly is open to that kind of reality. We know that there are occasions when every one of us, as believers in Jesus Christ, will have to make a stand in word or deed for the good or for what is right. When that happens, we become consciously aware that we're placing ourselves on the line. And is that not exactly what Jesus is trying to say to us? Sometimes we have to step up to the line and be counted. It isn't enough to turn away from evil. Sometimes we have to confront it. We have to name it for what it is, to identify it, and not to back away because we may feel intimidated or because we may not feel welcome because we are standing for that which is right and good. It isn't just in third world countries that this sort of thing happens, friends. It's anywhere the human family gathers. In the midst of the human family, there are always forces for right and good, and there are always those forces that would detour it, that would tear it down, that would disrupt it in some way for selfish purposes or for greed or for any of those base human needs that somehow don't take into account that our task is to build up, not to tear down. How many times did Jesus remind us that his purpose was to build up and not to tear down? Even in these parables that he told to those disciples, these were meant to be words of encouragement to them, knowing that in the fullness of God's time, it does matter. It does matter. It's not just simply that God is somehow indifferently watching the world, whatever is happening here. God has made an investment because God loves this world, and God cares about this world, and God cares about each and every one of us and everyone and everything in creation. The commitment God has made will be fulfilled in God's time. I know there are times in all of our lives when we wonder, why did this happen? What is the reason we have to deal with this kind of situation? But if we do it through the eyes of faith, and we do it through the power and the strength of the Holy Spirit, and with the leadership of the God who loves and cares about us, there is nothing in this world we cannot deal with. That's the real question. Do we depend upon our own strength alone? Or do we look for strength to the one who says, I am with you. I will not abandon you. And so it is that when we move into the world around us, we go with the sure knowledge that God is with us. If we keep our vision fixed on doing that which is within the will of God for the good of the world and for our good and the good of those around us, the strength we need to deal with evil in this world will indeed be made available to us. We should never be faint-hearted, friends, about what God is calling us to be and do. Paul, when he wrote that letter to the church at Rome, he was talking about the ways of the world that seem to invade and detract and distract us from the presence of God in our daily walk. Paul wasn't necessarily against being a human being. That's not what he was talking about. But what he was talking about is those powers that seem to exist in the human family where the evil one, as Jesus identified him as Satan, is at work for the destruction of our personal lives and the life of the world around us. Do we not want to hold on to that which is good? Do we not want to hold on to that which is life itself and not death? This is exactly what Jesus was trying to say to those disciples. It amazes me often that as often as they spent time with Jesus, going from place to place and hearing what he had to say and having opportunity for personal conversations with him, even when he told a parable, they had to say, what does it mean? We're trying to figure this out. Could you help us? Well, Jesus does exactly that. If we truly want to know what Jesus is about, like the disciples, we have to say, explain to us, Lord. Tell us what this means. And Jesus will spend time speaking the word we need to hear. Friends, the harvest is in God's future. The fullness of God's time will deal with all of this, but what do we do in the meantime? Do we stand for that which is right and good? And are we aware that there are weeds all the time trying to invade? I was gone for 8 days. You should see my garden. If we relax ourselves to the point where we don't recognize the weeds, they will come in. And they will work their way to diminish our lives. Now, I don't relish the idea of having to pull weeds in the garden. But faith allows you the ability to uproot those weeds and cast them aside. And that's exactly what Jesus was saying to the disciples. And that's the message that Jesus is saying to us. Every single day, we have to deal with the potential of evil, the weeds of the world invading our space to the point where it diminishes our lives, and it diminishes the lives of others and the very world itself. Remain a disciple. Keep aware that it is important for us to do what is right. It is important for us to do what is good. And if you stay open to the voice of Christ, you will know what that is. And you will not be diminished, but you will be lifted up and empowered and strengthened. May that be true for all of us, not just today, but for all of our tomorrows. Let us pray.